welcome to The Public Good. This is Dejia James from Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG, uniting over 380 partner organizations to make a better Western New York. This week, we are continuing our series on Buffalo in Transition, which is a series of white papers that we released at PPG. If you want to check it out, it's on our website, ppgbuffalo.org. But they are about the mayoral transition, the historic, really important race. If you haven't heard about it, you've been living under a rock. That's been happening. That will be the first new mayor and mayoral transition in 20 years. So it's really, really key and integral that we discuss why and what the people of Buffalo want to see change in the city and to really solve the problems that we've been facing. Last week we talked about our paper on vacant land, and this week we're going to be talking about supporting new Americans. The city of Buffalo, for the first time in the last census, saw population growth for the first time in decades because of refugee and new American communities coming into the city of Buffalo and Erie County. And so it's really important for us to talk about the real fact of the matter that the population of Buffalo is a lot more diverse than black and white. And we need to be considering all who are residents and citizens in the city of Buffalo, and all of the perspectives and needs that those people that reside in the city of Buffalo have. So I'm really excited to be talking about that topic today. I'm gonna let all of my guests and my wonderful co-hosts for the summer that you guys saw last week introduce themselves. I'll start with my wonderful co-host. Go ahead, Madison.
Hi, I'm Madison Sierra. I am a undergraduate student at Buffalo State University, and I am the PPG intern this summer.
Wonderful.
Hi, my name is Regine Ndanga. I am a Community Health Equity Project Manager with a Partnership for the Public Good.
Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace Karambizi. I am the Executive Director of the Buffalo Immigrant Leadership Team.
Hi everyone, my name is Bijoux Bihati. I am a Program Manager at Jewish Family Services of Western New York. I am also a board member with Buffalo Immigrant Leadership Team. I'm also a Buffalonian in terms of citizenship, if you would, and so I am also here as a community member and a parent and a voter. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to start with you two to kind of introduce more about some of the work that you do in the community. Grace, I would love for you to explain what BILT is for folks who may or may not know, and then maybe some of the work also, Bijoux, that you do at Jewish Family Services, because some may not know the scope of work that JFS actually does in the community. So,
Oh, yeah. Sure. So the Buffalo Immigrant Leadership Team is a group that organize immigrant and refugee, and we started organizing about in 2015, and that was because there was really a lot of crime on the west side, and the police wasn't responding as they should. So basically, people of faith, because most of the immigrant and refugee were going to the churches or in the west side, and lived on the west side. So people from faith just start organizing, going to churches and see if there were leaders who were interested to address these issues. So we start organizing then, and since then we have worked on really developing leadership. We don't want people to be speaking for the immigrant and refugees in Buffalo. We want really to develop our own voice and be able to advocate, to organize around the issues that really pertain to our community. So since 2015, we have organized around public education, access to equitable education, and health. And right now we're actually working on a project with PPG about lead. So and many of our leaders have gone through either local training about organizing, and when there are opportunities, also do attend national training. We are affiliated with a national network.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grace.
Beautiful. And I think to elevate what Grace is saying is that it's important to develop leadership team within the New American community, and so that they can bring voices to multiple spaces that pertain to issues that are impacting refugee and immigrant community. My work at Jewish Family Services encompasses advocating for culturally and linguistically appropriate mental health services for refugee youth, particularly in schools and community-based spaces. We can't talk about mental health without addressing basic needs, right? And so how do we partner with schools and community-based organizations to make sure that our youth are also being taken care of in a way that's holistic and more appropriate to their cultures and the background they come from? We partnered specifically with Lafayette International High School, and we've worked with multiple principals to learn about what issues are you seeing in schools and how do we implement programming that will support youth mental health and elevate their social emotional skills, and to make sure that it's in alignment with academic success as well. And so it's been 4 years doing that project, and we look forward to expanding and seeing ways we can partner better with the community to support our young leaders.
Amazing. Thank you so much for kind of highlighting the work that you're doing. And I want to center our conversation a bit. And Regine, you mentioned this while we were offline about talking about what New Americans and who New Americans rather are, because there are a lot of misconceptions or misunderstandings about what people are talking about when they use that term. And I think especially with the kind of the charge around New American, immigration, refugee, all of these different terms that people have, and they're kind of using them interchangeably, sometimes in a negative way, sometimes just in an innocence and an ignorance way. But can you highlight, specifically in this Buffalo in Transition paper, what population are we discussing when we say New Americans, and who do we want the city of Buffalo to be considering when they're moving forward with policy decisions for this population?
Well.
I know that's a handful of a question, because
I'm digesting the question.
I know it's hard to answer. Sorry.
It is a big question. I will say, in my own understanding of New Americans, most of the time when I hear people saying New Americans, they always refer to new arrival, people like new refugees that are coming, being resettled here in Buffalo, new immigrants that are coming over. But then we're forgetting about those families that arrived a year, 2 years, that they're still navigating the system, they're still learning English, they're still trying to live their day-to-day life. They also still need their support. And then for a refugee, you're here legally, and then after 5 years, you can take a citizenship and be naturalized as a citizen. You're still a New American, then you're going to vote. So it is a large definition instead of just minimizing it to new people, also people that have been residing here for a long period.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and I think it's important to contextualize that, right? When we say New American, it means various way of entering the U.S., right? You can come as a refugee, which is a humanitarian status. People are coming here because they're fleeing persecution in their own country, whether it's by religion or political views, you name it. But there are also people who seek refugee status within the state already. They don't come here already declared as refugees. Those are asylum-seeking populations. Once they get their refugee status, they become asylees. And then they have the legal pathway to become citizens, like the refugees who have been declared refugees. And there are people who come here with visas. That's legal way to enter the country, and then they seek way to stay long-term, and so on and so forth. And so it's important to distinguish the status that people may have, but also there are people who have lived in this country over 20 plus years. That's most of us here. I came to this country when I was a teenager back in 2004. And I've been a citizen since 2009. I am a voter. But you hear me talking, you see me on the street, New American. How do we give people the benefit of the doubt for ways in which they can participate? Can you graduate from refugee status? Can you graduate being a New American? Is there such a thing? And I think it's important to expand the definition of New Americans. That way we can also implement services and inclusive practices that reflect where people are at. if that makes sense.
I love that you mentioned that, because in the work that we've all done, co-work together in Coalition for Language Access, for other things with PPG, and then even in my prior work with the New York Immigration Coalition, et cetera, we've worked with populations and leaders in the New American community that have been here 20 plus years and are still fighting for some of the things that their family and they themselves needed 20 years ago today. And that their parents or their grandparents or aunties or uncles are still suffering with, even after being here 20 years. There has been no real pathway to education, to, they say everybody should just learn English, right? Well, how easy is that, depending on how old you are, or in general, or if you have IDPs or learning disabilities, whatever would have you. And so how are we trying to make our systems accessible for those that are coming here? And I also want to contextualize too that you mentioned that there's a lot of different pathways to becoming a new American, quote unquote. And a lot of those pathways are under attack in a lot of different ways. The number of refugee approvals is significantly decreased. I mean, I think essentially they've tried to just close the borders at this point, right? And so for people that are saying, well, why don't they just come legally now, right? There's already been issues with that system, right? But even now we're adding even more barriers and maybe even closures to that system. Then what recourse are we really asking people to take, right? And so it's really important that we talk about that. I always like to emphasize that there are different types of immigrants as well, in terms of, I think a lot of people think of immigrants or undocumented people as Latinos. And there's a lot of other types of new Americans that come from African nations, that come from South Asian nations, that come from Eastern nations, all of those different things. And we need to be thinking about that in a holistic way. And we also need to consider the fact that there are European immigrants as well. And so are those communities under the same scrutiny as some others, right? As Haitians, as some other people that we're seeing, where their legal status is actually being revoked, as we've seen with some Haitian populations as of recent. So it's really important that we talk about all of those different things. And for me to circle back to people have been here 20 plus years and are still struggling with the same problems, I think that leads to one of the questions you had, Madison. So I want you to go ahead.
Yes. So my question for you guys was, what does a truly immigrant and refugee friendly Buffalo look like? And what are some of the factors that are preventing that? Sorry, it's heavy.
I don't think we would be having this conversation if systems have improved. And I don't think I'll be doing the work I'm doing now to improve the mental health and well-being of youth if systems of education and integrating services have improved. A lot of the work that I'm doing reflect my own experience and what I wish we had in our school system to support our new American youth. We talk a lot about ENL services, which include language acquisition, and we don't talk a lot about the struggles of language acquisition at the same time being taught in that new language. It's complicated. And our youth have to contend with that as they're making new friends, as they navigating family dynamics, as they navigate a whole new school system, let alone if they've had interrupted education or no formal education at all. And so how do we implement student support services that will support such unique needs of students, let alone diverse experiences of those youth? And so I think in answering your question, it's important to develop age-appropriate programming, to develop language and culturally relevant programming so that we can meet diverse needs of people, from young people to people with families and older adults. And I think the common thread is, do we have language access that is reflective of all those programming that we are implementing? Do we have diverse workforce that reflect the populations we are trying to educate, just as an example? And so how do we look at the programming we provide How do we look at our workforce? How do we look at our leadership in a way that reflect the kind of inclusive practices we seek to implement?
And to center that comment, I just would love to add some of the things the city of Buffalo has tried to do to try and address the new population in the city, right? In the late 2010s, they technically instated an Office of New Americans and created this office, correct? This office, since its creation, has never maintained a full-time staff and has gone in and out with having a full-time director of that office. And currently, to my knowledge, is currently vacant and has been for over a year. And so the prioritization of actually serving this population and what services are being provided or maybe not provided in this case from such an office kind of shows the lack of attention and duty, in my opinion, that the city of Buffalo has taken and responsibility for in terms of this population that, you know, the city of Buffalo and the previous Mayor Brown was quoted multiple times venerating how we've grown, we finally grown. We're so happy that we have new Americans. We've seen a lot of ribbon cuttings. We've seen a lot of kissing the babies. We've seen a lot of flag raisings, right? But what else? And the other thing, because I won't just leave it on the mayor, and I'll take all the heat for saying this, but the Common Council as well. They made a resolution saying that the city of Buffalo should have language accessibility, and that City Hall, all offices should be accessible by language, but then created no budget line to be able to fund any type of translation or interpretation services to back that resolution up. And so on paper, we have a city who's saying we're going to provide services in such and such amount of languages for our population, but without the money to actually do that, then what are we doing? Other than having a couple of welcome signs and a couple of instructions or pamphlets and maybe some Arabic or some Swahili sometimes. And we've already had Spanish for a while, right? And what happens is then service providers then get the brunt of, then they have to incur the cost, and nonprofits have to incur the cost and the weight of trying to serve the population. And where have we heard this story before? It's beyond just new American populations, right? This is, and I say this to say, there has been many conversations, and I'm a member of the Black community from the city of Buffalo, and I find that within my own community that there is some resentment and hesitation to want to come in coalition and an alliance with new American communities to really talk about the structural issues that we all face equally. And there's a reason for that divide. I won't go into that divide, but I just want to say that the same systemic issues that we are seeing come out of the city of Buffalo affect the Black population, affect the new American population, affect the Latino population. And we have to get past, especially now, we already know the east side of Buffalo is not just Black African American residents. And we have to understand that fact, and we have to welcome that fact, and we have to actually address issues with that holistic thought in mind. That's all I want to say on this issue. I know some of y'all gonna get in the comments and gonna be lighting me up, but if you take it up with me, and if you want to see me in person, I see a lot of y'all sometimes. I hear your comments. I have discussions with you. I am willing to have an open discussion and dialogue with you on this issue, but we have to get past this divide so that we can properly address the issues we're seeing from the city of Buffalo for all of us. So I just wanted to say that, but in me addressing what I said, that there's been an Office of New Americans, that they've made these resolutions that kind of have no teeth. Grace, I'm gonna call you out. I'm wondering how you're feeling about kind of these toothless policy moves and promises maybe that we've gotten from elected officials or past mayoral administrations, and what you're hoping a new mayoral administration would do, and what do they need to do to truly kind of move forward, move the needle a bit.
Well. I believe that actually it is very discouraging to think that we were having this conversation 15 years ago, brought the leaders in the room, and they decided to create an office, but knowingly that they will not be, they really did not plan or just wanted to just satisfy the leaders who were there. But there haven't been very much of a communication between like City Hall and in different communities of immigrant and refugees. We still feel, and I'm putting myself in there, like we still feel that really City Hall is another place. Is strange. Is you really? I think a lot in our community, you wonder like, what is City Hall again? What do we do there? What do we go there? So there is that lack of really like investing into the community and realizing how much the immigrant and refugee community are bringing and have brought to Buffalo and engage them intentionally. So what I hope from the new mayor is that they are able to engage this community of immigrant and the refugee very intentionally. First of all, just hire someone, put a budget line, hire, like making an office and make it official, like literally. Like it's so we know someone like a liaison we can go to or who can come. We don't want someone who come and give certificate at the end of the games or when we have a community event. We just want a real relationship. And I think I want to say I want to say the city of Buffalo owes that to the immigrant and refugee community. So that office really, we want the new mayor, the next mayor, to really fund and have a relationship with the community.
And I want to add a little something extra onto that because I'm feeling spicy today. Hire somebody from in the refugee or new American community, please. Stop hiring these never been nowhere outside of the country before, let alone New York State or Buffalo, Erie County lines people into this office, okay? Stop doing that. It doesn't make sense. They can't navigate the community. They don't know. And it's already hard that you're already going to hire one person when there's multiple different new Americans come from all over the world, and you're going to hire one person to represent everybody. It already seems like you need to have more than one person in this office. Thank you. Now, Regine, I want you to talk a little bit about language access and some of the other recommendations from the paper, because obviously we need a fully staffed Office of New Americans, but there's some things that they could be doing now. There's some things that need to be added into the budget line that we're not addressing properly. Can you talk a little bit about what the city and city council also, because I know this is about the mayor, but you know, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, that they could be doing to also help with this population as well?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of things that they need to do. And I was coming here, I'm just having conversation with myself, and I'm like, what am I going to say? And I couldn't shake the thoughts of what was the intention of bringing refugee and immigrant to Buffalo? Was it to just increase the population? Because it feels like it, especially when they're not investing a lot of money, a lot of time, and being holistic and being more intentional to invest in the refugee and immigrant community. Is just like, okay, I'm going to have you have babies, increase the population, that's what you're going to do. And not recognizing what we are bringing to the table. We are bringing a lot of skills, right? When people are coming here, they're not just coming with not educated. We have people that, doctors, they carry a lot of professions, and they want to come here and build America, build Buffalo. And we are seeing that. If you go to Grand Street, you will see a lot of restaurants. We're increasing economic here. We're paying taxes. We are increasing houses' values, but we are not seeing that recognition in the community. And I think I'm tired. And I think most community, they are tired. And we really want the new mayor administration to be honest and transparent. And if you're going to talk about refugee and immigrant, we want to see them represented in the city of Buffalo. If you're going to have advisors, make sure we are in there in the space when decisions are being made, not being told, hey, we just make this decision because we are the expert. We understand what it is to be a new immigrant in a new country, trying to understand the law and navigate the new, everything is new, right? Um, the Office of New American, I agree, they need to allocate funding for that, not only for director, they also need to hire people from our community that they want to uplift our community and each community member to be self-sufficient, not just someone that wants to say yes to the mayor. Somebody that really wants to create programs. When we did when I remember when I started working at PPG and I went to meet with the community leaders, and they were like, this is what we want. They know what they want. We want the programs. Have a center where we can come to your office. We can talk to a human being, right? When we call you, somebody who's going to answer. Create programs, entrepreneurial program, leadership programs that we want to be self-sufficient. We don't want to rely on the government benefits. We want to be able to have business. We want to be able to flourish in the country just like anybody else. We also want, they also talk about different programs like civic engagement. We want to know how the government operates and how we can navigate the entire system. We want the city of Buffalo to be like a hub where you go and seek services. And I cannot shake my thought, like, let's talk about when you are having guests, what do? You prepare your house. Why? Because you want, the house to be presentable. You want people to feel, comfortable and welcomed. Yeah. Why are we not seeing that? And then we're bringing that to the table. So I really want to have that welcoming, to feel the belonging. You want us here, and not just, just we're increasing population. That's not what we're looking for. The other one is, let's look at what other city around us are doing. Like Pennsylvania, it is a perfect example. They have different cities like Philadelphia, Lancaster. They are already satisfied, welcoming city. Here in Buffalo, we say we're a city of good neighbors. We are welcoming, but we are not, because we have now satisfied ourselves to be a welcoming city. Being a welcoming city, they have different criteria that they need the city to comply with. Are you engaging the community when it comes to government and leadership? How about accessing education? Are you providing proper education for the refugee and immigrants? And when they come, they will do a full analysis of the city. What programs do you have? You're not meeting this criteria, go back. In order for you to be a welcome city, you need to make sure that you're reaching X, Y, and Z, and then we give you that certification. And if you don't comply to that, you lose certification. So we are seeing some cities, they're doing that so wonderful job. Why are we not doing it? We just need to pay a couple $100 and follow the procedure and do it and make it happen. So that is another requirement that I really want to see City of Buffalo to be satisfied, welcoming city. And part of that welcoming city also talk about accessibility, and which covers language access. Language access, it is an umbrella that covers a lot of things. In order for you to navigate anything, you need language. Back to your point, I know people often talk about why you're not learning English. If I take you to France, both you and I, we're learning French. Will you need an interpreter to navigate while you're learning French? You will need one. So we want to learn, but you need to help us where we're learning. And by doing that, you're providing translated material, you're providing interpretation. So we need to have that centralized language access in City of Buffalo, not only one, everywhere. So when we go navigating the City of Buffalo, we know, no one is feeling left out or feeling like, I cannot go there because I'm not welcomed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think it's important to also consider having an advisory board to the mayor that reflect the diverse communities of refugee and immigrant, because it's one thing to have an advisor for New American, the Office of New American. It's one thing to have navigators who can help people to access the city hall and city government services, but it's also important to consider who is providing advisory to the mayor of ongoing issues in the community so that we can actually be in compliance as a city that welcomes people, but also how do we evaluate how we are doing on an ongoing basis? Because at the end of the day, we'll be revisiting the same issues over and over and over again. I want to move on to something else. I don't want to be advocating for the same thing over and over again. I don't want my child, 25 years later, to still be advocating for the same issues that we are talking about today. And so I think it's important, what are the long-term measures that we can put in place and continuously evaluate how we are doing and put some concrete steps in addressing those issues.
And just hire people. I think the immigrant and refugee community does have very highly qualified people who can occupy also those posts that are available in at the city level or at the government level. So I think is intentionally involving them or recruiting them, that will also help a lot.
Absolutely. And especially now we're in a time where everything federally is going on, and a lot of Democrats are releasing a lot of statements. I've seen a lot of, political office letterhead with a lot of promises and a lot of we support this and we're going to welcome and we're protecting everybody. But are you, right? And so what policies are some of these people? And some of these people are putting out statements and they have the opportunity to potentially come into this office and do something about it. And so I'm hoping that people like that will be watching this and constituents can be watching this to really push elected officials to not just be making statements that they're posting and putting out in press releases and you see on social media, on Facebook and everything like that, but we're actually seeing tangible change within City Hall, within government offices, so that we're making sure that everyone's represented, one, in policy and decision making, which is a first step. And then two, we're then seeing the results of those policy and decision making. Yes, Bijoux.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to meet the moment. Right now, people are terrified. Right now, people do not trust institutions. People do not trust each other. And so how do we get to the basics? People need to be trusting. People need to access important services. And so as leaders, we need to be able to address those issues before we could move on. And people go to whom they trust. And so if we're not hiring people who reflect their lived expertise, if we're not bringing advisory that reflects the needs of the people, we will not attract people to access our services. And so we are leaving them without important services that they need. And so when we're talking about long-term issues, we also have to address what's going on in the country right now and how are people feeling and how do we engage from that trusting perspective.
Yeah, and I think it's about, like I said before, building solidarity across different communities, right? Because a lot of us are under attack in different ways. We're being stigmatized in different ways in media, social media, society. And then we're just all in our little corners, right? And it feels like we're all in our little fiefdoms trying to fight over whatever little scraps, and it just doesn't make sense anymore, right? And so how are we coming together? And I think that was your last question, really, Madison, is, and I want to let you ask that.
Yes, so you pretty much did just touch upon it, but it was really just what do we say to communities that are in fear of displacement, and also to the frontline workers that are unsure of the tools that they'll be able to use, and how can we work together to stop these fears and stop this just inability to reach your own community?
I like to say that as people, we are very resilient. First, fear, instilling fear in people, is a technique and tactic that people do use who want power, and I believe that it is important for us to realize that we have power, and we have power collectively. not separately. Just as Dejia just say, like, literally, we want the same thing. We want the same thing for our children, for our communities. So instead of like really working separately and trying, and if you are in a nonprofit world, like trying, like fighting over a grant and stuff, like let's pass out of it and then like think about like really what is humane, what is my, when we say we are a city of good neighbors, what does my neighbor need, and can I be there, and can I stand with them? I think that is really that is important. But really, let's tackle in the fact that we are resilient people, and we can fight this collectively. And yes, I believe we will win.
Yeah,
Yes, we will.
definitely.
Absolutely.
And I think this is not the first time this has happened before. History keeps repeating itself. And yes, we need to work in together. And also at the same time, I'm losing my thoughts here. We need to work together as a community. And also at the same time, we need to ask ourselves, if I'm looking at Dejia and I said, oh, she's being attacked, oh, that's Dejia. But is it really Dejia that's getting attacked? But am I going to be next? Like, what are some of the issues that they're attacking her, and how those issues are going to impact me as well? So it's not only like a you issue, it is our issue. So if immigrants are getting attacked, you are also getting attacked. So if no immigrant like going to farm and work, you're not going to get food, and we'll have no food in the US, so everybody's going to starve. So we need to look at things from not only from my own perspective, why it is not my business, it is our business. Yeah. So same thing with the Medicaid. You live in a nice neighborhood. If a large number of people they cannot qualify for Medicaid, even you with the insurance that you can afford, you're going to feel something. You're going to get impacted from that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just to add to that, I think when we talk about displacement, we need to be mindful that people have already been displaced multiple times.
It's re-traumatizing.
And it is re-traumatizing, and it's exacerbating their emotional well-being. And so how can we be a trauma-informed, welcoming city? You know, we talk about trauma-informed in other aspects of lives, you know, in education, in social, social services, but we don't consider government as a trauma-informed institution. And how can we become trauma-informed, being mindful that people have been displaced multiple times and they've experienced egregious trauma along the way, and what they are going through right now is re-triggering those traumas. And so if you expect people to heal and fully participate in our city government, we need to do something about what has happened and how do we help people recover so that they can be fully present. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, it's a trauma of the past, but that trauma is being revived right now in so many communities, and it's impacting everybody. And so that's something we can be mindful of.
Absolutely. And I think in general, the kind of what's going on in society right now is re-triggering a lot of scars, right? Racial scars, a lot of xenophobia, a lot of other things, right? And when you talk about displacement, I just can't help but always try and bridge the gap here. I think about how I've had Eastside Parkways Coalition on the show and talking about the displacement that happened not even one generation ago, of through the building of a highway and people's homes being destroyed and having to move, and the pushing of people out of Buffalo now because of gentrification and not being able to afford, and the trauma of not being able to afford a home or to pay your bills or to achieve the quote unquote American dream, right? And then now the kind of gaslighting of, well, we just want to, save America for true Americans. But what is that saying? What is the coded language there, right? What is a true American? Everyone on these couches right here in the show is a true American, right? And so what is the picture of America that one sect is trying to paint versus what is the reality of what our country is, right? And I think that's the basis of the conversation that we had today. And we could go on, but we have actually reached the end of the show. I told you guys it was going to fly by. I really appreciate you all for coming, bearing your own personal souls really into this topic. I think to your point of trauma, Bijoux, all of us have lived experience in a lot of the areas that we work in. And so it can be hard to kind of convince people of that experience and the necessity of doing something about it and creating policies to fix it day in and day out. And so I just commend you both as leaders for your community and continuing to do this work, because I know it's easy to get burnt out. So I just, all of you, I thank you all for being here today. And I'm just so happy that we had this episode. I hope people look more into it. I'm going to put the websites for Buffalo Immigrant Leadership Team as well as Jewish Family Services in the caption and description. If you made it this far, you might as well like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I want to be sure that people keep having conversations about this. So if you want, please share this video as well as the white paper. It is supporting New American Communities. It's a part of our Buffalo in Transition series on ppgbuffalo.org. And this has been Dejia James from Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG, uniting over 380 organizations to make a better Western New York, Buffalo Niagara region, and I keep saying now recently the world. And we are so happy that you joined us this week, and we can't wait to see you again for the next episode. Bye.